Rainworld can be summed up neatly by looking at the two parts of its name, the rain, which kills you, and the world, which also kills you, over and over and over again. Die to a lizard, die to a vulture, die to a pink lizard, die to gravity, die to an invisible lizard, the list goes on. You'll see something off in the distance and have no clue what it does, but you'll know it wants you dead, and the only way to figure out how is to experience it yourself. If you don't want to, though, you can at least watch as I summarize my failure-filled run through the game, starting with you. You are this guy. This guy is a slug cat. You can jump, throw rocks, eat bugs, and go through tiny little tunnels because you have no bones. You can also starve, so one of your goals is to eat enough food and reach one of the several disaster shelters before the rain, and take a little nap, which raises your karma, which will be important later. Take too long to find a shelter, though, and... So, time is of the essence, but the threat of bad weather doesn't matter half the time because you won't be alive long enough to see it. You can technically fight back with the random spears lying around everywhere, but even when I'm not performing a true-to-life recreation of my Little League baseball career, lizards take a lot of hits to take down. But once you finally defeated them... Shut up, no you haven't, you are weak, the lizard is strong, and your only option is run. Or climb. Some lizards can't climb these poles, so you're safe on top of them. Except the poles also kill you because nature is mean and doesn't care about your feelings. Dying is an intrinsic part of this game. I'm pretty sure I've made that clear at this point, and it'll turn a lot of people away super quickly. A few people I know have played for a few hours, then quit because it feels unfair or overly harsh. You play as a creature way closer to the bottom of the food chain than you're probably used to, and the first zone tries maybe a little too hard to communicate that. Death comes with consequences, the karma you win by surviving is lost through failure, and I'll get to why that loss is important later, but most importantly, losing just feels bad, and it feels even worse if it seems undeserved, which happens often in this first section. But playing this game requires the understanding that with failure comes opportunity. Yeah, you grabbed the wrong pole and it ate you, but you might have noticed the way it moves when the wind blows by, and now you know to look out for that. Yeah, you failed to fight the lizard, so maybe next time just make sure it never sees you in the first place, or better yet, lead it to another lizard so they fight each other instead. The game is unfair if you've just started, but if you're willing to take a few hits, it becomes a little more manageable. Eventually, once you learn not to die in the game all about dying, you can follow this funny yellow guy to where he's leading you. I said karma would be important later, later is now. This gate stands between you and the rest of the game, and if your karma isn't high enough, then you'll have to come back later. But obviously, I would never die, so the gate opens and we're on to the next section. Or at least we would be if I didn't wander around without finding a checkpoint for too long and got rained on to death, meaning my karma decreased and the gate won't open anymore. All I really need to do is survive one more day to raise it back up, but surviving is difficult with the multitude of ways this area kills you. These angry bugs will pursue you relentlessly through the pipes, the evil purple grass wants you dead, and the lizards have learned how to walk on the background. If you look hard enough though, the game does give you a few more tools to help you out. Like drugs! Okay, maybe this isn't helpful, but it's funny. Actually helpful is the first creature we've found that's too big to eat and doesn't want to eat us. These flying squid-looking things can be held onto, greatly increasing your jump height. It's not flight, so you can't go jumping off cliffs and expect to survive, but it's the first piece of help the game's given you, and it's much appreciated. Slightly less appreciated, by me at least, are the scavengers. These guys wander around looking for shiny rocks and killing enemies, which would be incredibly helpful if you weren't also considered an enemy. You can befriend them by giving them said shiny rocks, which in retrospect explains why they got mad at me earlier, but you only have 2 hands, and those are both used for throwing rocks and grabbing bugs. Fortunately, passing through these guys isn't required to move on, so after a few more attempts, I am on to the second area. For real, this time. Welcome to the industrial complex. We have vultures. Vultures are terrifying, they want you dead, and you can't stop them. Fight them, you're dead. Run away, they'll chase you. Go into a pipe, they'll... Actually, yeah, that one works out. But we've also got these horrible plants that only exist to stop you from moving, so sometimes you won't be able to get into a pipe in the first place. Also lizards. All of the lizards, a rainbow of lizards are here, and their sole purpose in life is obtaining a tasty slug cat snack. Also, some of them are invisible now, but I've gotten slightly better at hitting enemies instead of the air 10 feet above their heads, and being invisible doesn't mean you're immune to taking a spear in the butt. That kind of thing hurts a lot, I would know. Unfortunately, this is where I make a tiny little mistake. The game's a lot like Hollow Knight, the 3rd greatest game of all time, mostly because the protagonists look the same. Kind of, but more importantly because you're not on a set path. You see, in Hollow Knight, your main objective is to reach these 3 different spots on the map, and you can do so in any order. Go down here to fight a jellyfish, climb a tower to fight some beetles, or head to the far left to fight your nightmares. Point is, you have options, but unlike Hollow Knight, in Rainworld there is very much so a correct one. You have this little guide friend who shows you the dev-intended path forwards, and he keeps you away from the more difficult parts of the game while you're still learning. Or, well, at least he does if you follow him. I didn't, and if you thought the game so far was hard, then you are not ready for the Shaded Citadel. True to its name, the Shaded Citadel is full of shadows, which both make it hard for you to see and hard for you to live. Oh, and the first paragraph on the wiki says it's highly unrecommended for first-time visitors. Me, that means me. A few glowing frogs and grape-flavored flashbangs later, though, and we're onto something even worse. Darkness levels suck, but water levels suck more. Try to stay dry, and the vultures will come for you, because the vultures always come for you, and dipping your toes into the water leaves you vulnerable to the lizards who have now learned to swim. And also this guy. I don't technically know if he's aggressive, as I never messed with him, but, you know. I'm making an educated guess here. Also drowning, there's an area of little water obstacle courses that I had a nightmare getting through, where I drowned, and I drowned, and I drowned, and then I found some eels, and they did the drowning for me. Every moment I spend in this zone makes it clearer and clearer that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This area is firmly in the mid-game, but do you know what's worse? The endgame. The end of the endgame, literally the very last level, the subterranean, which I accessed directly from the little water tunnel down here. At first, this area doesn't seem too bad, just some massive centipedes, weird grabby murder plants, and you guessed it, more lizards. Okay, it's pretty bad, but now we have some friends here. I even traded this dude a shiny rock for his spear. I think he might have needed it, but he seems happy with his choice. Anyways, then they turned the sun off and stuck me in a maze full of more invisible murder lizards, which is a bit overkill because I can't see anything anyways. At this point, you may have been wondering, Bob, why in the world are you skipping to the end of the game? You have eyes, you've definitely figured out you're not supposed to be here. To which I respond, it's the developer's fault. You see, while I knew this path wasn't intended, it was a path that was made available, and I figured that I would be rewarded for coming here. It's an endgame area, surely it has some endgame loot for me, right? And to be fair, it might have. I certainly didn't find any, though. This game isn't Hollow Knight. You don't unlock a double jump by stumbling down the right hallway. For the most part, your rewards are limited to what you can hold in your own two hands. Or stomach. Did you know you can eat things in this game? And puke them up later if you need them? It's crazy. It's like having another arm, but inside you. After making my way through some very strange rooms and approaching the last obstacle in the entire game, which, surprisingly, I was not quite capable of beating, I had nothing to do but run to the exit, which, for the record, put me back in the very first area. I wasn't exactly empty-handed, I did grab a nice glowy rock from the scavengers, but I had just beaten the only two areas where it might have been helpful, and to make it even more useless, later in the game, you just start glowing, making it nothing more than just a fancy decoration. With no other choice, though, I continued back down the path. The intended one, this time. So now that I've beaten the very end of the game, what else could pose a challenge? Mechanical murder birds, that's what, but before we get to that, it's time to actually follow our yellow friend here. He leads us to a lovely little place called the Garbage Wastes, where the trash has not only turned the water yellow, but the sky too. It's got more vultures, it's got more eels, it's got more lizards, because everywhere has lizards. It even has this guy, a prime example of what happens when you eat too much radioactive trash. And I hate it. But this area is relatively short, and outside the mutant daddy longlegs back there, nothing was too terribly hard to get past. After a quick trip back across the horrible water level again, no, seriously, this is just unfair, we find a person. Well, a robot person, but still. They appear to be pretty badly damaged, so we should probably help them. Ooh, look, the floaty things are edible. Well, with that out of the way, these weird orange bug things have spawned in all over the place, and they seem to be leading me somewhere. A couple zones later, and I'm back in the darkness again, because of course I am. Conveniently, I glow in the dark now, who knows how that happened? But it makes this area a ton easier. Following the orange bugs led me to this room, which is a completely unremarkable area outside the worst shelter ever, but there's a path to a new area nearby. Problem though, I may have accidentally gone in the complete opposite direction of the intended path. Again. Now, I don't know this for sure, but given the way forwards had me climbing up these boxes, which was impossible unless I gathered spears from all across the zone, I'm pretty sure there was probably another option somewhere. Those options don't matter though, because they don't lead me to the murder birds. This short area doesn't have any other enemies, but does it need them? Dealing with these things is hard enough. The only thing you have to deter them are these little purple seed bombs, and you can only hold two at once, so avoiding death here is hard, even before you remember that you're on a time limit. And if you take too long, you have to do it all over again. Fortunately, after a few tries, I get past and reach the best area in the game. Why is it the best area? Because you get a grappling hook, of course. Now, I might not be the best at using said grappling hook, but the game's not going to give me any time to learn, because this stupid daddy longlegs tentacle monster is back. You would think our grub-powered grapple would make dealing with this thing a little easier, but it operates entirely off of sound cues, and grappling around is not the quietest activity. Fortunately, after some very patient, very anxiety-inducing gameplay, I've snuck my way past, and oh god, there are more of them. Yes, this is still Rainworld, you are still expected to die. A lot. Sometimes it feels unfair, sometimes you learn from your mistakes, and sometimes you just have to sit there and question your decisions. But with enough time, patience, and self-control, you can make it past this spider-filled nightmare. Just kidding, the next area is entirely filled with spiders. They crawl on the walls, they are the walls, there are so many of them that they've collapsed into a black hole from which you cannot escape. But more importantly, gravity has become, a little inconsistent. Yep, this area is filled with the most dangerous enemies in the entire game, and you don't even have the ability to walk straight anymore. This section took the most attempts by far to complete, with every little action having big consequences due to the insane momentum. Sometimes I'd bounce off a wall and get stuck floating around in circles, sometimes I'd fly straight into a spider that was off screen, and sometimes I'd try to jump straight up, but the game said no and sent me to a wall instead. Twice. This is the last obstacle in the entire area, and there is nothing meaner in the entire game. Food is no longer a problem, but there are hardly any checkpoints, and a full stomach won't help you fight Cthulhu's favorite pets. Weapons are even more useless than they already were, and my karma has bottomed out a long time ago. But finally, I made my way through the gauntlet of spidery death and found another robot. This time, though, it seems to be in proper working order and gives us a funny glowing square above our head that increases our karma cap to 10 and lets us understand what it's saying. It talks about how we're in an endless, repeating cycle, one in which all life is trapped, how he was built with the purpose of finding an escape, and how, down the old path where the land fissures, the ancients have built something that will give me that which I seek. Then he kicks me out because I've been destroying his memory arrays and eating his little tech jellyfish. So, with my one daily allotted encounter with cryptic godlike beings fulfilled for the day, after getting my 2 daily allotted cryptic god encounters out of the way, it's time to head back to the subterranean. But this time, the end is in sight. Having already cleared it without the ability to see, I had no problem getting to I quickly reached without dying a single time. I returned to the weird-looking rooms under the map. With our newly maxed-out level 10 karma, the creepy and guardian things let us past, and all that's left is to experience the ending. And the ending is, a little strange. We swim around in trippy golden goop, say hi to something that is far bigger than any living being has any right to be, and swim around with a bunch of copies of myself. I don't get it, and if you say you do, you are probably right. Please explain it to me, I'm so lost. I'm not super surprised, though. There are clearly a few secrets I missed out on. I'd never figured out what this robot lady was up to, what that weird god thing was, or who decided that making mechanical murder birds that travel in packs was a good idea. But that just means I'm not done playing. There's clearly more to this game, with alternate characters to try and a pretty sizable DLC that gets much more into the story. I'll probably get around to playing it at some point, but even from the small fraction of Rainworld that I've experienced so far, I highly recommend it. I may have spoiled, all of it, but you should still pick it up and give it a go. I don't know, just see what it's like playing the game without beelining straight for the end. I just hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And as always, thanks for watching my video. See ya!